Mr. Jadhav has spent 34 years of quality life with Motor Vehicles Department of Maharashtra uh, Vehicles Transport Department, and he was also associated with Central Institute of Road Transport. Those who don't know, Central Institute of Road Transport Pune is one of the premier institutions where where DTOs, RTOs, MVIs, police officers who deal with transport-related issues, and officers of various state transport organizations. They are all trained, and I had the good fortune to be invited by that institute, and that is how I came to know about Dr. Jadhav. Dr. Jadhav is a rare commodity in the sense that he he has a PhD in from Tilak University. He did it in the year 2005 on critical study of functioning of the existing enforcement machinery of the Maharashtra Motor Vehicle Department. He also has a diploma in transport management from CIRT, and he is a law graduate from Pune University, Pune. Uh, he used to come regularly at NIA for various MDP programs that used to run, and with senior executives of various insurance companies, both public sector and the private sector. And those who will be dealing with motor claims in future, they will know most of the issues in motor claims also come from RTO related issues, like whether the driving license is valid, in which circumstances the driving license is not valid, or what is the role of permit, what is the role of fitness, or how does the learning license affect the claim at times. So everything, whatever issues we had related to RTO, and who could have better answered those queries than Dr. Jadhav. And as I said, Dr. Jadhav did his PhD, which is a rare thing in any RTO officer. I have not seen at least any RTO with a PhD degree. And he continues teaching at various places, and he loves teaching. I have seen at NIA Pune. He also teaches with the Insurance Institute of India, and this is the first time I invited him at BIMTech, and I'm sure you'll love it. Jadhav sir, I have with me my senior colleague, Professor Pratik Priyadarshi.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste, sir.
Pratik ji
Good
first
to have you with us, sir.
With United India.
Sir.
Then he served plenty of private sector insurance companies, Tata AIG, for Tokyo, and he himself had a broking firm. But we literally coerced him to join BIMTech, and that is how he is with us right now. And another colleague of mine has joined, is Manoj Parikh. His mother is not well today, and possibly that's the reason he is not visible. Manoj has joined recently with us. So he was with HDFC Argo, and he also did his PhD in insurance. He is also with it. My colleague Anil is there. Anil is our manager and very efficient guy. He looks after the entire department. So most of the students have joined. Let me also explain about INMOS, the club which is holding this program. INMOS is Insurance Movers and Shakers Club. In this sense, this is a club of all alumni of our colleges, and also some insurance professionals are member of this particular body. So we keep on holding various insurance related programs for the benefit of the insurance professional community and also our students who are in various organizations right now.
Right.
So, sir, this is the pictures that you can see. Plenty of our students, they are first year students. Right now, they are also studying motor insurance. They have joined, and I'm sure many will join. Many will join through Facebook. This is going Facebook Live also.
Okay.
So, and then of course YouTube later on. So it's going Facebook Live also. So, right. Sir, with this little bit of introduction, brief introduction of about BIMTech, they are insurance student. This is the 2-year professional insurance course that we run, And
Yes,
in
sir.
fact, we were the first to start it in India before the NIA started it. NIA started in 2004. We were the first institution in India to start it in 2000. So in that way, it is the oldest
Okay.
institution in terms of professional 2-year insurance program. And we have been doing very well. All our students are placed with all leading institutions of India, and they have been doing very well. Some of our alumni have joined, are in very senior positions in the industry also. So with this little introduction, sir, Anil or Anirudh, will you show the slides, sir? And
Sure, sir.
sir, this session is now yours, sir.
Yes,
And
sir.
right, sir, right.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chaturaj sir. In the beginning, let me share a few moments that I have shared with Chaturaj sir, Mr. Dr. Abhijit Chaturaj, whom I got associated with long back in 2008 when I was in Central Institute of Road Transport, and I was invited as a guest faculty in National Insurance Academy, and thereafter I was recognized as a regular visiting faculty, and I had an opportunity to interact with very senior insurance officials all over the country and even from abroad. But sir, today the topic that we have chosen is a peripheral issue related to the insurance sector.
Right.
I'm directly focusing on the aspect of the road safety. Sir, I request that the other presentation may be opened first, which
Okay.
is about dimensions of road safety.
Sure, sir. Allow me
Okay.
to change the PPT, sir.
Anirudh will help, sir. Anirudh
Sure,
is
sir.
there. Anirudh is our first year student, so he'll help, sir. Anirudh.
Sir, actually, today I'm talking to all stalwarts and scholars of insurance. But sir,
Yeah.
we always focus on the insurance field, but there are so many other aspects
Right, sir.
that you always deal with the risk management.
Right, sir.
But there are non-insurance aspects which are very critical.
Right,
And
right.
that today I got an opportunity to place before you. Hopefully you will definitely appreciate it. Sir, we'll start with this.
Right.
Dimensions of road safety. Yes, sir.
First slide, kar do, Anirudh.
Yes, sir. I begin with the basic thing that when we talk about road accidents, almost all road accidents are preventable. That's my basic contention. Because whatever accidents happen, as we almost all know, that almost 80% of the road crashes, the accidents, are credited to the driver's errors. And these errors, if proper care is taken, then these accidents could be prevented. And therefore, World Health Organization, way back in 2004 or 2005, they changed the term of road accident into road crash. Because when we talk about an accident, any event which is an accidental event is definitely, sort of a motivated or, concocted kind of event, and that is a road crash. Otherwise, accidents by per se are not, they are not accidents, they are road crashes. And therefore, now onwards, we'll talk about, when we talk about accidents, we'll talk as road crashes. The next slide, please. Yeah. When we have the overview, we come to know that almost 85% of the road crashes all over the world, they happen in the Asia Pacific region, which is a very big volume, because Asia Pacific accounts for almost 25% of the geographical area, or perhaps a little more, but they account for 85% of the road accidents. And as far as we talk about India, the numbers of vehicles in India, they are almost hardly 5% of the total world vehicle population, but almost 10% of the road crashes that happen all over the world are taking place in India. And the anatomy of Indian road crashes is more than 5 lakh accidents take place every year, and which result into almost 1.4 lakh fatalities. So when we come down to the micro level calculation, every 1 single minute we have an accident, we have a road crash in India, and every 4 minutes we have a fatality. It is that big the dimensions are so very huge, gigantic, that road safety is of paramount importance, not only for the roads, the human safety, but also from the national income point of view, the national development point of view. You go ahead, sir, for the next slide. Now we can have a look at the vehicle population of India. I have a figure for 2016 end, because this is available from the MORTH website. MORTH is Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, where we can see that two-wheelers in India, they count almost 17 crores or 1700 lakhs. The cars and jeeps account to 280 lakhs or 2.8 crores. The commercial passenger vehicles, which include the auto rickshaws, the taxis, the Kalipili taxis and the luxury taxis as well, and even the minibuses, tempo travelers, they count for almost 87 lakhs. The goods vehicles are more than 1 crore. They count 105 lakhs. The buses, however, they are a little less in number compared to the Indian population. They are only 14 lakhs. And the miscellaneous vehicles, which include all the earth moving equipment and the road rollers and the boring rigs and the cranes and the tractors, they all put together, they count almost 120 lakhs. And this total counts for 2016, it was hardly 23 crores or 2,300 lakhs. Just a moment, please, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. So, all in all, the total vehicle population way back in 2016 was 23 crores. And the estimated figures for 2020, the next slide, please. Yeah. So, in 2016, it was 23 crores. And the estimated figure for 2020, the year that we finished now, is almost 30 crores. So, we are talking about a huge number of vehicles. Of course, the human population also is, we are almost touching the premier spot. We are even now ready to cross China as far as human population is concerned. And we have 30 crore vehicles on Indian roads. This figure actually is not a real-time figure, because these are the accumulated figures. We have been having statistics since 1951. And those all vehicles have been added for the sheer reason that all vehicles have not yet been brought on computer records, electronic records. And therefore, all the manual record vehicles, they have not been removed from the records which have already scrapped. And therefore, this figure is a little inflated one. But we can count for about 75 to 80% vehicles are definitely today moving on Indian roads. Next slide, please. No, before that. Yeah. See, this is one profile of one city. Previously, I believe this is almost 12 or 13 years back that we used these figures for Pune city. But the time that this data is related to is not very important. What is important is the share of the fatality that can be seen from this table. So you can see the vehicle drivers, other than two-wheeler drivers, they are 4% that they are fatal during the accidents. Total 726 accidents were taken into account, of which 32 were vehicle drivers other than two-wheeler drivers. The two-wheeler drivers were 205 and the pillion riders were 68. So on two-wheelers, they have been segregated, the two-wheeler drivers and the riders, pillion riders. Then pedestrians was the biggest figure, which with 288, which is 40% of the total figure. And the cyclists are 8%. The bus passengers also were taken into consideration, which is 7%. Only 3 days back, there was a accident. The bus went into the canal, killing all the 45 passengers on board. So in such mishaps, the bus passenger account, that gets inflated. And some other fatalities which are also taken into account, they count only 4%. But What is important is the first two figures, they indicate that the vehicle drivers and two-wheeler drivers means the driving population and which has paid through their life, they account for 32%. So in other words, 68% of the fatalities that have taken place on the road, they are not the drivers, but they are the other road users. Because the pillion riders, the pedestrians, the cyclists, the bus passengers, all are put together and they account for 68%, which is more than 2/3 of the total fatalities on roads. And this is a real big figure because we only talk about the drivers and their errors and their role and their damage. But we have to also consider that majority of the road crash fatalities, they are not related to driving. They are just on the road due to the sheer need to carry on their daily activities. And that includes the school children, the college going boys and girls, the office goers, the industrial workers, and even the people who come out casually, not for the daily commutation, not for the daily activities, but they may be going for various occasional activities also. And all this put together, they account for 68% of the fatalities, which is a real big contribution. And for the next slide, please. Here I have only referred to the definition of road user given in the rules of the road regulations appended to the central motor vehicle rules. A road user is a person who is either driving or traveling on the road in a vehicle or otherwise. And he also includes a pedestrian. So everybody on the road is a road user. But normally we refer to the road users other than drivers as other road users. And that's all. We can go ahead. For analysis purposes, I have referred to the figures of Maharashtra because I didn't have figures for Delhi ready with me. But this gives you a good profile of what is happening on the road. See, as far as Maharashtra state is concerned, the human population is 1,250 lakhs, that is 12.5 crores. Whereas the vehicle population of Maharashtra is 371 lakhs. So close to 4 crores. But the licenses issued in Maharashtra state are 358 lakhs. This figure is a little larger figure because almost all of the driving licenses are now on computerized records. And these licenses are renewed every 3 years. And therefore, almost all driving licenses are on the electronic records, computerized records. And therefore, this figure appears to be actually, though it is a smaller figure compared to the vehicle population, if the vehicles may be less than 3 crores, if you take a real-time figure, yet the driving licenses are more than 3.5 crores. Yes, sir. Any doubt?
No, sir. No.
Okay, I'll carry on. So, when we talk about the driving licenses which count for 3.5 crores, the non-driving population of Maharashtra comes to almost close to 9 crores. And in these 9 crores, out of the 3.5 crore drivers, almost 2 crores of the drivers also come on the road on various accounts, not as a driver, but as a other road user. And therefore, overall number of other road users on the road, I am claiming that almost 11 crore people are on the road, which are not drivers, but they are using the roads. Because see, when we talk about the normal human population, every toddler, even a toddler, a small child who is living in a some small dwellings like slums, even though they are so small kids, they are also on the road. Then from that age profile, we come to all age profiles until these senior citizens who are say bedridden or who are not able to come on the road on their own. So this we can skip, say about 2 to 4% or even 5%. Rest all 95% of the people in this world, in this society, they come on the road, and therefore we go to the next slide, sir. And therefore, the entire community has to be made aware of the road safety scenario. As I am claiming, the drivers are a minority. and almost all the population, almost all the societies on the roads, and they all need to be educated. They all need to be sensitized about the road safety issues. And moreover, as we know, जैसे वो कुत्ते जैसी मौत जो रास्ते पे होती है, मतलब people live, they die like dogs with the way the pedestrians are sometimes run on. So the importance of life in India is so devalued. It is so very severely undermined that the road safety aspect that needs to be understood actually at a proper age, which I claim, which is a middle school age. Just a minute, we'll go to the next slide, sir. And therefore, every year we have the road safety week or the road safety campaign. For all these years, this year it was 32nd road safety campaign. Normally, the central government, the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, they pass on directives to implement the road safety week. But this year, they made it a point, and it was a road safety month. So it was a road safety campaign which spanned from 17 January 2021 to 16 February 2021. And during this road safety campaign, every motor vehicle department of every state, they, along with the traffic police people and the PWD department, they all came together and they implemented and they tried to spread a message of the road safety. But unfortunately, as a academician, I claim that our focus during this road safety campaign should be the non-driver population that I had earlier referred to, because they are a majority of the people who are not used to driving. They don't know the driving regulations. They don't know the traffic signs, and yet they are on the roads. And 68% of the fatalities are accounted from these non-drivers. And therefore, during this road safety campaign, we need to focus on the other road users. And the best thing is, as we need to catch them young, so that particularly I personally feel that at my schooling age, when I was small, I remember I used to say, pay attention to the teachers even after 10th. I won't claim that during all the college days I have paid attention to what the teachers told me every time, but definitely it was not less than matriculation. But today I can say for sure that almost after 7th and 8th standard, the students pay lesser attention to what the teachers say. The age has come down with the maturity in these technological era, and therefore the proper time to teach something about road safety, to sensitize the society about the road safety, is the students who are hardly in the standard of say 7th and 8th, who are very receptive. And therefore, next slide, please. So, because when we talk about the focus that I was mentioning about was, we want to focus on the young students. So the drivers who are in the elder age group, their mindset is so different. As we all know, we all Indians, we are so very tolerant at home. We talk about all the legacies and the good thoughts and the culture, and we are very tolerant at home. We all obey the seniors. But when it comes on the road, when they are behind the steering wheel, they are totally intolerant. Nobody wants to, let other person go ahead of him. And therefore, always we counter the situation of road rage. This is a very, such a situation that people, they are only almost like the split personality, because people are very obedient at homes and they're absolutely, I can use this road rage, like, major drivers, their behavior, and that behavior reflects through their driving profile. They are almost like, I won't say this word rascal is a real bad word, but actually that scale, the intoleration of that scale can be observed from the normal drivers. And when we talk about the driver's behavior, next slide, please. Yes. And, are we having the next slide? Just a moment.
Anirudh?
So is it visible to you, sir? Because it's there in my screen.
No, the next slide is driver behavior.
Yeah, right. We
Yes.
can see the driver behavior more.
Yeah. Can everybody see the driver behavior slide? Yeah. Now it has come.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So the normal management KSA approach, in which the knowledge it pertains to the vehicle operations and the traffic regulations. When we talk about the skills of the driver, it is about maneuvering the vehicle and negotiating difficult terrains and climatic situations. Because as we can see, there are so many road profiles like ghat sections, or the expressway conditions, or a highway passing through the city, and therefore these are various difficult road traffic scenarios. And the climate situation, as we know, during the rainy season and the season when we have a snowfall or fog, these are they need a special skill from the driver so that they can negotiate such situations and keep themselves safe. And the last part is the right attitude to tackle with such traffic situations and tackling with the fellow drivers. As we all know, in this KSA approach, all three aspects are equally important, and therefore the attitude matters. It definitely matters when we talk about the driver behavior, because the behavior constitutes of all these knowledge, skills, and approach. And when we see the driver behavior, just because of improper attitude, the behavior becomes a rash, and therefore that counts for the basic driver's errors due to the improper attitude. Now I want to tell you a very different kind of analysis that I have in the next table. Yes. This analysis talks about the accident severity and driver condition. It's a very complicated kind of table, but to make it a little easier, I would tell, as we can see, if you come to the last point, the fourth column, and the last row, as we can see, if the driver is in order, if the driver is proper, if he is not intoxicated, if he is not fatigued, if he is alert on the wheel, even in whatever accidents have taken place, even when the driver was in order, 96% of the cases we have seen that there was no injury to the vehicle occupants and the driver. This is a really satisfactory figure. On the other hand, come to the first column and the first row, where we can see whatever fatalities have taken place, in majority of the cases, in 12% cases, the driver was under severe fatigue. Whereas in 9% of the cases, the driver was intoxicated. He was under the influence of alcohol. And therefore, the fatality rate was pretty high. So the driver condition, his physical condition and the mental condition matter the most. And therefore, even after the accident, the chances of no injury, if they want to be, if the accidents, if the crashes happen and still we expect that there should be no injuries, then the first thing is that the driver should be in order. And on the other hand, if the driver is intoxicated or is severely fatigued, then the fatality or the percentage of grievous hurt increases very sizably. Yeah.
Prakash, sir, if I
Yes,
can
sir.
interrupt you at this point,
Surely.
sir, we have been normally communicated that with age, people tend to react slow, and therefore there is a probability that the maximum number of accidents which the drivers commit are normally in the higher age bracket. So is it correct, sir?
Actually, your statement is correct only to the extent that the reaction time definitely comes down with age.
Sir.
Sir, for a normal driver, the reaction time to visualize and react positively is 0.5 seconds.
Okay.
Let me tell you this in a little detail. The normal drivers means I'm talking about the drivers who are 18 plus and up to the age of say 45. That these are termed as normal and healthy drivers, and their reaction, they react to any situation in 0.5 seconds. I have myself experienced that. I have undergone that test. But sir, as the age increases from 45 to say 55 and 65, the reaction time increases. They take a little more time, and that time can increase even up to 1 second or almost 1 second if the driver is healthy but a little aged. But sir, if somebody is under the influence of alcohol, this reaction time can even increase up to more than 1 second. It could be 1.5 seconds or even 2 seconds. Wow. And that matters the most, because the drivers who are aged, they know that they are not very alert and the reaction time is more, and therefore they take sufficient precautions and they themselves control the vehicles. They drive their vehicles at a lesser speeds. So my basic contention is the age profile of the drivers that we can see, as I'm talking about the drivers' errors in the accidents. Sir, 80% of the accidents happen due to drivers, and the majority of the drivers are less than 45 years. That is what the statistics says.
Okay.
So even the aged drivers whose reaction time is more, yet the incidence of accidents with aged drivers is less from statistical point of view.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir.
I hope you get it, sir.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Shall we go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Now, it was another request that was put before me that I should discuss the effect of liquor on the driver behavior. And I feel that's a very vital point, because people take the enforcement machinery for granted. They always have a knowledge of where the police people will catch them, at what time, at what junction. And then they take proper precautions and they evade them. And yet they dare to enjoy the alcohol and yet continue, they want to drive. Now I want to just tell you the effects of liquor on driver. Yeah. The psychological effects that I have mentioned is, of course, a driver under the influence of alcohol, he has a very high level of confidence, because he thinks he can maneuver any situation and he can overtake anybody, and he can master the road from any side, from any of the lanes, and he can even dare to cross the lanes and go the other side of the road. He has that kind of confidence. But at the same time, his decision making becomes poor. His reaction time also, of course, I'm talking about the reaction time. I'll come to that because I'm now talking about the psychological effect. And the third aspect, as I told you, is the road rage. A normal driver himself is always, raged when he is on the steering wheel. But if that chemistry of driving and alcohol comes into being, then this acts like a catalyst, and the rage is at the highest point of whatever level that he can go. When we talk about the physiological effects, the reaction time, as I was talking about, that a driver under the influence of alcohol, his reaction time can increase from 0.5 seconds to even about, say, more than 1 second and 1.5 seconds. Now, these seconds count the most, because we take a situation where a person is driving a vehicle at a speed of, an empirical speed of, I take 72 kilometers an hour. A 72 kilometers is a very easy thing to calculate, because 72 kilometers an hour, if you break it down, it becomes 20 meters per second. 72 kilometers in 1 hour and 20 meters in 1 second. The calculations will come to the same thing. So in half a second, the distance traveled by the road, the vehicle at a speed of 72 kilometers an hour, in half second it goes 10 meters, which is a pretty 30 feet, which is the size of a big hall. So as you can understand this, that if a driver is driving his vehicle at a speed of 72 kilometers an hour and he sees some obstruction in front of him, say that obstruction could be in the form of a red light or some pedestrian who is trying to cross the road at a wrong time, or there is a boy who is running across the road trying to catch some kite, or say somebody is playing on the roadside, the cricket is being played on the roadside, and some batsman has hit the ball and the ball is crossing the road, the fielder is following him, and that child suddenly jumps on the road, and you see that obstruction. After seeing that obstruction, your response to that obstruction is you take almost, you take off your foot from the accelerator, you shift your foot from accelerator to the brake, and then there is a brake play. There is a play in the brake pedal, which is about say about 5 millimeters, half a centimeter, and then you press the brake pedal. Until then, the vehicle is moving at the same speed of 72 kilometers an hour. This entire process of visualizing the obstruction by eyes, then taking the decision from the brains, and then shifting the limb from accelerator to brake, all this happens in 0.5 seconds for a normal driver. And during this 0.5 seconds, the vehicle is going to surge ahead for next 10 meters or 33 feet. And after that, when the brakes are actually applied, then the braking distance comes into play. I have one slide that you can understand a better, you can have a better understanding. That I'll come to that in another slide. But this response, that becomes, that becomes slower if somebody is under influence of alcohol. Moreover, the pupils get dilated. When the pupils are dilated, they react the wrong way. They remain on the large size, and therefore more light passes through the retina, and then you cannot stand the glare of the headlights of the vehicle approaching towards you, and therefore you get a wrong picture, you misunderstand, you misjudge. Moreover, the equilibrium also gets disturbed. The equilibrium, when I'm talking about the equilibrium, it is about the eustachian tube. The eustachian tube maintains a liquid level between the two ears. When this alcohol is when the driver has consumed the alcohol, this equilibrium between the two ears, that gets disturbed to the extent that the person will try to maintain the equilibrium by moving his neck. And by moving his neck, actually one can see a drunkard fellow who is very high on alcohol. He is, jo jhoom raha hai, he goes on the left and the right like a snake. Even when some drunkard is walking on the road, actually he's trying to maintain that equilibrium. Right. And this equilibrium gets disturbed, and this effect directly affects the driver on the steering wheel. These are the effects of liquor. And therefore, the next slide, please. Can we go on the next slide? Yeah. So the drivers need to be sensitized. I'm coming to the concluding part of this first presentation, because we need to see that braking distance part that I was talking about in the next presentation. Here, we can see that the driver's attitude and behavior are the ultimate key to safer roads and reducing road crashes. And the drivers must take personal decisions on not to drive at excessive speed, not to drink and drive, and they need to ensure usage of safety belts, helmets, and other road safety devices. In a short, I can tell you, there are two types of road safety devices. One are the active road safety devices, and the other is passive road safety devices. The active road safety devices come into play before any accident scenario. Like you can use the horn, it is an active road safety device. Secondly, your seat belt is an active road safety device. But after accident, whatever comes into play to prevent the damage or to control the damage, these are all passive road safety devices like airbags. They come out and they try to minimize the damage. They almost keep the driver safe. These are the passive road safety devices. Even the crumpling zones of the vehicles, they come into picture after the collision, and they try to minimize the damage. They are passive road safety devices and on. So as far as the drivers are concerned, I was just focusing on the drivers part, that the drivers need to be sensitized. They need to be made to understand, and that only licensing is not the time that they can be sensitized for life. A good culture, a driver's culture can come, which if we start inculcating the road safety tips, the road safety principles right from the schooling age, then we have better citizens, better potential drivers, and these drivers can make the future driving scenario, the road safety scenario, in a better way. I think, sir, we immediately move on to the second presentation, sir, which is of vital nature that you rightly mentioned about the reaction time of the drivers. Can we shift on to the second presentation?
Sure, sir.
Absolutely.
So, if you
Sure, sir.
allow me, can I ask you one question before
Of
that?
course, sir. Unless we talk, my sessions will not be helpful. Yeah, please.
Sure, sir. So now that we understood the dimensions of road safety, how can we focus on non-driver population, especially in densely populated cities, especially like Delhi? So we understand the
Okay.
careless mindset of people on the road. At the same time, changing the attitude of the driver is also a big challenge, as we understand. So what
Right.
provisions can be there for non-driver population?
See, firstly, as I mentioned earlier also, that majority of the people who come on the road, they are not drivers. They are all the normal citizens. And these citizens have a profile right from the toddlers and the school-going children, the college-going students, and all. All these people need to understand road safety. And road safety, therefore, as we all know, as I was mentioning earlier, that a student who pays attention to the teacher, they are more receptive at that age group. And therefore, firstly, that right age group of say about 10 to 13, 10 to 14, they need to be tapped, and road safety education need to be imparted to that age group. That should be the target group firstly. But that doesn't mean that we need not talk about road safety to other people. So we can have any kind of gatherings where we can go, we should go. We can hold, say in schools, we can have slogan competition, the road safety slogan competition, then the road safety drawing competition, and road safety essays, and the road safety debates, out of which the children get enough sensitized. After this children part is concerned, even the traffic police department officers, in the RTO officers, they need to reach out to various other target citizen groups. Like, people can pay visit to industries, and there the road safety culture could be, the education could be shared. Then even in जैसे Durga Puja hota hai, they have good gatherings. Of course, people are in a different mood, but a proper time could be chosen where such officials, such road safety experts need to come, need to interact with the this wide spectrum of the population in various residential areas also. Even in the we can have traffic education parks. We have so many parks within the powers of the municipal corporation where traffic education parks could be constructed. We have a couple of parks in Pune also where the children are made to ride the bicycles, and there all road safety signs are displayed, and all those rules are mentioned over there, and they are made to learn the road safety various points, the tips. Sir, there is a little disturbance outside. Please bear with us for next 1 minute.
Absolutely no issue, sir. In fact, just
Sir, I'm not getting
continuing
you.
on your, I said, sir, continuing on this very topic, what I wanted to understand.
Please, I request for a pause of 1 minute, sir. I'm not able to hear anything, but the vehicle is moving. It is a garbage vehicle actually. They're playing loud music to attract the people who can come out and empty their garbage bins. The vehicle is passing right now. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, what I was simply saying was that, just continuing on the point that you were talking about education of children, particularly towards this traffic rules and regulations. Sir,
Yes.
what I would like to understand is that since most of the cities now have started using electronics and electric signs and signages and signals, don't you
Yes.
think that the traditional method of trafficking is going out of market. It's being outdated, because now most of the students do not use the hand signals. There's no
Yes,
manual signals being used. They're all use the electronic and the electronic signages.
yes, yes. Not only that, sir, the another aspect is now almost all of the cars are air conditioned vehicles, and the window glasses are always up, and therefore these hand signals are almost outdated, though they are very vital even today.
Correct.
But normally when the air conditioned cars move on the road, the window glasses are always up, and therefore nobody takes their hands out. And in that sense, really the hand signals are outdated. But let me tell you, even the technology which has helped, we have better side indicators, and they are sufficiently visible, and therefore things are somehow being manageable even with the help of electronics. Of course, uh, when we talk about the signals being shown by the drivers, even only that part is outdated. But when we talk about the traffic signs on the road, well, in spite of all these technologies at our disposal, the road signs, the traffic signs are vital, and they continue to be they continue to play their role, sir. We'll go into the presentation, we'll try understand that, sir. The next slide, please. Next slide. Yes, just a minute. Yeah, I'm just mentioning small definitions which are of vital importance for everybody that who is now on the session. See, when we talk about parking, sometimes we see a no parking sign, and one sign, the no parking sign indicates there is a blue circle with a red oblique mark, indicates that you are not supposed to park your vehicle there. But there is another sign with a blue circle and two red obliques, a cross on it, which indicates no parking and no stopping. So that we need to understand what is the difference between parking and stopping. Here, the parking definition given in the rules of road regulation says that parking is bringing a vehicle to a stationary position and waiting for any purpose, and that includes stopping for more than 3 minutes. So if you stop your vehicle somewhere on the road and that stoppage time exceeds 3 minutes, it amounts to parking of the vehicle. So what people do normally, they put the driver there in the vehicle, and they say even if the vehicle stays there for more than half an hour, they say the vehicle is not parked because the driver is very much on the steering wheel. But actually it amounts to parking if that stoppage time exceeds 3 minutes. That is the definition of parking that has been mentioned here. And therefore one can be charged that even if the driver is there on the steering wheel and the vehicle stops there at any place for more than 3 minutes, it amounts to parking. Next is the right of way. This is a very important aspect. Next slide, please. Yeah. A right of way is the right of a vehicle to proceed in a lawful manner in preference to another vehicle. So there are various situations where there is a conflict. Whenever there is more than one vehicle come into the picture at, say, junction, particularly at a junction, it could be intersection of two big roads, or intersection of a big road and a small road, or there could be multiple kind of junction where more than 4 roads are coming together. But there is always a conflict as to who will pass ahead. That is the right of way. Okay, and that right of way, just a minute. Just a minute. Actually, that got mixed. Can we go to a very, a slide which is quite ahead of it actually? Yeah, slide number 11, please. Yeah, right of way. No, slide number 11.
Sir, does it start with at intersection and junctions?
Yes.
So I'm on that slide, sir.
Are you?
So it should be visible to your screen.
Yes, now it is visible, sir. This is you took the right actually, but I'm shifting to just a minute. The first point is that the precaution, that's slide number 10, which talks that the vehicle shall invariably slow down when approaching a road intersection, a road junction, a pedestrian crossing, or a road corner, and shall not enter any such intersection if it is likely to endanger the safety of other road users. But I was talking about the next slide, which talks about whenever there is a conflict and more than one vehicles are coming together, the preference that is mentioned at point number 2, which says the vehicle approaching from the right side shall have the right of way. Because in our Indian system, in the all Commonwealth countries, where the rule is to drive the vehicle from the left side of the road, it's only in the Commonwealth countries where the Britishers have ruled. In majority of the countries where the Britishers did not reach, all these countries have a right-hand driving system where the steering wheel is on the left and the vehicles move from the right side of the road. But in the Commonwealth countries, including India, we have a traffic that moves from the left side of the road and the steering wheels are placed, located on the right side of the vehicle in such a geometrical position. Vehicle coming from the right, they need to be given the precedence. So if you are on the left, rather some vehicle has come from the right, that vehicle needs to be, that should be permitted to move ahead. But of course, there are exceptions to this also, because the exception says, the first exception is, if the junction or the intersection is being regulated by manual signals by an authorized person, like, a traffic policeman is standing on the junction and he is maneuvering the traffic, he is directing the traffic, so the traffic will move as per his directions only. Or there could be, the signals, the red, yellow, and green signal. These signals will manage the traffic. But in the absence of it, then the precedence that I have been mentioning, that the vehicle coming from the right should given the right of way. And second exception is, if our vehicle is coming from a smaller road and we are merging into a bigger road, in that case, vehicle, whether it is coming from the right or from the left, the vehicle on the main road should be given the precedence. That is the right of way. So this is one exception that I was talking about. In the next slide, we can see the next slide, which shows.
So, should I move to the slide, earlier slides, or should I keep moving?
No, next slide, 12 number.
Okay.
See, there is a paucity of time, and therefore, I'm trying to cover the one major point that sir had mentioned, that was about the stopping distance, that I'm trying to come. So we'll skip the earlier slides. And of course, I'm going to share I have already shared the presentation with Abhijit sir, and that presentation everybody will get. And in case anybody has doubt, my email ID has also been given on the title presentation, title of the slide. We can see that the vehicles coming from the right, that is a major road. And when the major road is having, the vehicles, even though the vehicles coming from the right, they are coming from a smaller road, then they need to stop. In case there is no road signal, traffic signal, in case there is no policeman, even then, though the vehicles are coming from the left, they need to be given the precedence only because that is a major road. So this is an exception for right of way. I hope you get it. Just a minute now. Even the next slide, we can go to slide number 13, where a roundabout has been given. On a roundabout, if you are joining the roundabout, then the vehicle already in the roundabout, they need to be given the precedence. And of course, in our Indian scenario, the vehicles on the roundabout which are already there on the circle, they are coming from the right, so they need to be given a precedence. And now the important slide comes, and that is slide number 14. The next slide, please. Yeah, I'm talking about this safe distance. This is a 2-second rule. This rule is applicable for vehicles which are moving in one direction only. And normally when two vehicles are following each other, if the rear vehicle is trying to, minimize the distance, and it is trying to, what we call a bumper to bumper driving, that is called tailgating. That is definitely a bad habit, because any danger, any obstruction that the front vehicle negotiates, it may result into sudden braking, and the rear vehicle will unnecessarily bump onto the vehicle in front. And therefore, the safer speed, the safer distance, that is not need to be mentioned in a proper distance as a measurement of length, but a measurement of time. This is a 2-second rule. So how do you count the 2 seconds? See, if you can see some stationary object like a pole on the roadside, if the front vehicle passes the pole, the driver from the rear vehicle, he can start counting 1001, 1002 by the time 2 seconds are over. If within those 2 seconds, if the rear vehicle passes the pole, it means the distance is less, and we need to adjust our distance so that the 2-second distance remains. Now, this 2-second distance is applicable for all speeds, because larger the speed, larger the distance, lesser the speed, lesser the distance. And therefore, this 2-second rule is applicable for all types of vehicles, for all types of roads. Of course, if the road conditions are very bad, like foggy conditions or rainy conditions, there the 2-second rule, you can relax that a bit and you can increase the distance, but not less than 2 seconds in any case. Another important, can we shift to slide number 17, please, which talks about restriction on driving backwards or in reverse direction. And point number 2. Yes. Now this talks about driving your vehicle in backward motion, in the reverse gear. It is told that you cannot drive your vehicle in reverse gear. Somebody can, he'll say that, see, if the vehicle is unidirectional, if the vehicles are moving in one direction, but if some smart person, he will put the vehicle in reverse gear and keep in the same direction, but in reverse gear, and the reverse motion he uses. Even that is not permitted. That is a regulation. Okay. And even in a one-way road, the vehicle cannot be driven backwards. So this is a very important kind of direction. Okay. Then I come to, slide number 20, please. In various scenarios, like driving in a ghat section, where vehicles are coming up the ghat, and in some situation we are going down the ghat section, there we need to remember that the vehicles coming up need to be given precedence, and that is a regulation. That is not out of only mercy or tolerance, but vehicles coming up the ghat section, they need to be given the precedence, is a regulation. Okay. Just a minute. Yeah. This is a very important slide number 27, please. 27.
Is it visible, sir?
It is visible, but I think you have taken 29. No, what is it? No, I want slide number 25, please. I'm sorry.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
I'm sorry. Yeah. As you were right now mentioning that with this technological revolution, everything is getting digitalized, everything is getting computerized. But even then, these traffic signs, they are so vital, because as you see, there are various types of traffic signs. On the left, you can see the circular signs, which are mandatory, which are obligatory. If you don't follow the signs in the round shape, then you are bound to be fined. You are bound to be penalized for that, and the challenge will be registered against you. But if you see the triangular sign, it's a cautionary sign. A cautionary sign cautions you at various places on the road, like, if there is a school ahead and you need to take precautions while negotiating the school portion. There only taking precaution is necessary. There is no penalty provided. Or in a ghat section, when you can see there is a left hairpin bend, or there is some turn, and that is given in triangulars. So these are cautionary signs. And the last one is that rectangular signs, which are informatory signs. They are not obligatory. If you see a parking lot on a square or a rectangular board, there is an option given to you. If you want, if you wish, you can park the vehicle there. Or rather, if there is a hotel ahead, if there is a destination ahead, these all destination boards and the petrol pump boards and the eating places board, they're all displayed in rectangular signs. And why these signs are important? Because as the features are mentioned over there, symbols are used instead of words wherever possible, because they are quickly seen, they are quickly understood, and there is no barrier of language. And therefore, these signs have their own role to play even in this technological revolution. Okay. Now we go to the next slide. That is slide number 26. Yeah. Here we can see that there is one empirical speed shown that the vehicles are following each other and the speed is 50 kilometers an hour. At the 50 kilometer speed, if the vehicle coming from the rear that counters an obstruction, that sees some problem, some distance goes during thinking and the remaining distance goes in the braking. So at 60 kilometers per hour, the thinking distance is 12 meters and the braking distance is 30 meters and the total stopping distance becomes 42 meters. So in that case, instead, if you are driving at a leisure speed of 40, the stopping distance comes to as low as 22 meters because the thinking distance is only 8 meters and the braking distance is only 14 meters. That is the effect of speed on the total stopping distance whenever you counter an obstruction. Okay. We can go to the next slide. And there you can see, where various speeds have been mentioned, and at various speeds, the driver's thinking distance and the braking distance is shown. And of course, the stopping distance can further increase, as it is mentioned on the right side, that the stopping distance will increase if the tires and brakes are not in good condition, if the road surface is wet or oily or slippery, or if the driver is not physically fit, or as you said, the aged drivers. This stopping distance can increase because in the aged drivers, the reaction time is more, and therefore they take more time to react, and therefore the stopping distance automatically increases in case of unfit drivers or aged drivers or drivers under influence of alcohol. And even when the weather conditions are worse, the stopping distance is definitely going to increase. Yes. Next is, of course, slide number 29. This production of documents, even that is mandated in the law. Whatever documents you have, you need to carry. Of course, now the new development is we have a DigiLocker where you can carry your RC and your driving license and the insurance certificate and the PUC certificate in your mobile, and that is valid as per the government directive. You need not carry them in physical form, and therefore your vehicle is also safe. You can keep your material RC in the house. So even if the vehicle is robbed, the RC remains with you. So this production of documents is now, which is of course mandatory by law. And lastly, whenever there is a road crash, next slide please. Yeah, whenever there is a road crash, Section 134 of the Motor Vehicle Act 1988 mandates about duty of driver in case of accident and injury to a person. And Section 133 talks about duty of owner of motor vehicle to give the information.
Correct.
So whenever there is a road crash, our duty as a citizen and as a good driver, as an obedient driver, is to share the vehicle details. So if there is a fault, if during investigation the fault is found, then the police can track you, and if it is not so, then of course you will be let free. Of course, but there is an agonizing period in between, which everybody knows. As they say, accident is a situation where presence of mind is good, but absence of body is better. And that brings to end of this session. And the session is open for actually queries and question and answers, please.
Sir, honestly speaking, it was a wonderful, informative session, sir.
Yes.
Anirudh, all yours.
Thank you, sir. Now we will begin with Q&A round. Students may go ahead and ask their questions.
Yes, please.
Sir, I had a question.
Yes.
When we say that the traffic rules should be followed and this and that, but how do you feel that the problem of providing licenses without a driving test contributes to it? Because it's still prevalent and rampant even now.
Actually, the government is moving in this direction, albeit there are so many limitations. Previously, as you rightly say, the driving licenses were, because legality says that a driving test has to be conducted before issuing a license. So now that license is given in two separate stages. Somebody asking question? Can I continue?
Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir.
The driving license process is in two stages. One is the learner's license, where a computerized test is conducted. Now, almost all states have started this computerized learner's license test, where there is a question bank of more than 250 questions, out of which 20 questions are fielded randomly, and the candidate has to successfully pass by answering more than 12 correct answers. So 60% is the passing level, and only then the learner's license is given. And after 1 month of the completion of learner's license, a driving test has to be conducted. Now, as you mentioned, yes, there was an issue where, in the name of a very, huge population ready for the driving test, and there are a scarcity of officers, and therefore the licenses, the test was taken merely as a formality, or even there have been instances where people claim in the past that they got their licenses sitting at their homes. Now that is definitely of the past, because firstly, the biometrics are captured where your physical presence is needed. Secondly, the tests are now recorded by cameras. For your information, as far as Maharashtra is concerned, I don't have a clear picture of what is happening in the entire country. But as far as Maharashtra is concerned, we have now we have begun with that. We have only 2 driving test tracks all over Maharashtra, and in next I think 15 months or 16 months, we are going to have 50 driving test tracks which will be monitored by cameras, and the tests reports would be recorded, and the records will be available to the candidates, even in case of passing and even in case when they are declared failed. So with all this technology coming to our help, even the quota system has come into place, whereas now the officer is asked to conduct tests for only 40 candidates. Previously, one officer used to test more than 100 candidates a day, where he used to apply his own judgment and conduct a test of any candidate in less than a minute. Now he has to devote at least about 7 to 8 minutes for every candidate. Yes, somebody was again intervening. What is that question?
Nice, sir. No, nothing much, sir. In fact, the question that I wanted to add, supplementing what Nisha was inquiring,
yes,
is that, sir, does it not look strange that you get a learner's license after getting 60% of a marks,
yes,
and probably you get another your actual driving license even without clearing 100% of your questions, but ultimately when you're on the road, for all you know, the questions that you did not attempt are actually the ones that are going to be used there, sir.
What you said is right, sir. Actually, 60% is only the cutoff. A good driver needs to score 100%. Firstly. Secondly, if he is a diligent driver, a diligent learner, the entire 250 questions are available on the question bank on the website itself. One has the liberty to go through the entire 250 questions. So he is, properly educated to the highest point. And the new concept is now coming that the driving test will not be taken by the inspector now onwards. If it will take a little time, say more than a couple of years or so, but now we are entering that regime where in the developed countries, the test is not conducted by the inspector of the RTO department, but his driving is certified by the trainer who trains him for more than 30 days. So during the entire 30 days, the instructor has a closer look at the candidate, because when the candidate comes to the RTO office, he knows he has to drive properly. His attitude is not checked, sir. His knowledge is checked at the time of learner's license. His skills are checked in, say, 5 to 6 minutes at the time of driving test, which is so minimal. During those 5 minutes, his attitude cannot be tested because he has the attitude of being a very obedient and a good person, so that the inspector does not object to his behavior and he is declared passed. But the instructor who is sharing his time more than 20 hours with that candidate, actually today it is 20 hours, now they are increasing to more than 30 hours. So if the instructor has a closer look at the person who wants a license for more than 30 hours, he definitely knows what his upbringing is, what his attitude toward driving is, what his attitude towards other road users is, and he himself trains. And with the help of that training certificate, his test would be waived and the license would be given depending on the training certificate itself. That is the regime now we are going ahead in next couple of years.
Excellent, sir.
Yes.
Chaturaj, sir, are you there, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir's father is not well. So one more question, and then I request Pratik sir to propose vote of thanks to sir.
Right, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Because sir's father is not well today.
No, not an issue.
Actually, he is lying there behind me. You can see.
Yes. Oh, yes, we can.
Oh, so sorry, sir. So,
No. He is there since 5th January.
Okay.
And things have to move ahead. So I'm here with him, but I'm also doing my session. No issue, because he's actually peacefully sleeping there.
We are actually grateful for your activities right now, sir. Okay, boys and girls, one last question, please.
Sir, I have a question. Generally, we see that in heavy commercial vehicles, they are generally overloaded. And this activity is quite rampant as we travel on roads. So aren't there any checks and balances in place to minimize those risks?
Yes. See, overloading is, I will say, even today it is almost rampant. But now the enforcement measures are coming to place. See, firstly, the enforcement machinery, the penalties have increased to such an extent that if an overloaded vehicle is seen, even 1 single ton is overloaded. A normal truck which has a capacity of 10 tons, if 1 more ton is overloaded into it, for 1 single ton, the fine is about 6,000 rupees for 1 single trip. Okay. Even that fine, in spite of that fine, people evade this enforcement machinery and keep on moving ahead with this overload. So now this next step we are now moving ahead in our India, and that is whatever offenses are registered against vehicles. Overload is only one part of that. Let it be overload. Let it be various traffic violations like signal jumping or excessive speeding, then drunken driving. All these things, they not only will now reflect into punching of the licenses and adding penalty points to the driving licenses, which will result ultimately into suspension of licenses. For your information, in Mumbai, we have started a single signal jumping will reflect into 3 months of suspension of driving license.
My God.
In case of overload, the schedule given is 6 months of suspension of driver's license. Only thing, with the help of technology, now the MIS is getting into place, and now onwards it will be more purposeful and more focused and more. They will have more teeth. But until today, with all the manual records in place, this was very difficult to manage. So all such traffic violations, including overload, they result into a suspension of driving license, which is a very big punishment for the driver. First, secondly, all such traffic violations. Now the insurance companies are going to get this information shared with them. And this will reflect into loading of premium every year, and which will be so heavy that such traffic violations, I am very sure in next couple of years, that would become the thing of the past. Though we are a developing country, they are taking a little more time, but we are moving in the right direction. And we will definitely see better picture not more time, even a couple of years, I will say it is more, because today's Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, Minister Honorable Sri Gadkari ji, he is taking help of all these technologies, and we are taking strides in the right direction. Yes.
Sir, the biggest challenge is that even when we started this session, मैंने दबी जुबान में अपने स्टूडेंट्स से कहा था कि भाई जितने सवाल पूछने हैं पूछ लेंगे. Some students have taken it literally. Sir, अब मैं परेशान हूँ. Nisha, your last question, and this better be the last one.
Sir, I will definitely attend to the last question, but I also feel that somebody can moderate all these questions and some specific questions could be put on my email, and I will share the answers, sir, later.
Definitely, sir. In fact, Anirudh will take up that lead for that.
Yes, yes. Yes, the question that we are about to ask, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. You talked about parking and the timing for that parking. I want to ask that many times buildings are constructed, and not only residential buildings, but hospitals and everything without designated parkings, which leads to parking of the vehicles on the roads and everything. So how is it? How are we going to tackle this?
See, we are dealing with the past and the present at the same time. Previously, the development plans were not proper in any municipal areas where these societies were proud to display the board that visitors parking not allowed or parking at owner's risk. No, see, normally whether a complex is a residential or a commercial, it needs to take into account whatever the potential parking that may happen out of whatever commercial activity is happening at some commercial area. So, for example, if there is one coaching classes in some commercial complex, and that coaching class has a classroom of 50 students, then these 50 students, if they come with 50 two-wheelers, the commercial complex should have a capacity to park these 50 two-wheelers within the premises. And in that sense, our completion certificates even today in the municipal areas are not given on this basis. And therefore, in the future, we are taking into account all these such things, that whatever activities are taking place in some premises, that activity needs to take care of the parking of the operators, the people who are residing there or working there, and also they need to take into account the visitors parking. This is, we are a huge democracy. The population is so big that, to make the past and future meet is a very difficult task. We are moving in the right direction, but we are moving very slowly, because the large cities, they need to be scattered. They need to be decentralization. There need to be, if you go to new townships like Sidco in Mumbai, Navi Mumbai, and Noida, there perhaps you may have even I'm not sure about Gurgaon, but these new places, they have the facility to for parking of vehicles of the people who are owning the premises, and also parking for the visitors. Only then the things can remain in the limits, and therefore this parking issue could be solved. But in the old areas, in the old residential areas, all the walled cities, the old cities, the parking issue will always, you are going to counter it for next, I don't know how many years, unless the proper decentralization takes place, unless the rural areas don't get urbanized, unless the public transport is properly taken care of. Very few places like Mumbai and Delhi, where there is a huge population moving through public transport, and where they don't carry their own vehicles. But the entire country, other than these big metropolis, they all move with their own personal vehicles, and the parking issue is always going to remain there for next quite many years. That's what I believe. I don't have direct answers for this. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would like to go ahead with vote of thanks now. On behalf of BEMTech, I would like to thank you, sir, for taking out your valuable time and join us for the Insurance Talk series. This was indeed an insightful session, and we will look forward to have more such sessions from you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I'm leaving the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you,
Just
sir.
1 minute.
Pratik sir, can you hear me?
Pratik sir has left, sir.
Okay. Sir, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Jadhav, sir.
Thank you.